Hello you guys, it's Ansu and welcome back to my channel. So today we're here to talk about all the books I read in the month of January. I'm actually very pleased to say that I finished reading 11 books this month. I'm filming this on the 31st and I'm back to the reading slump, aren't we? So it's fine. I did read 11 books in this month, so I'm just going to talk about all of them. If you hadn't seen my 2020 goals video, I talked about how I wanted to read at least one Cinda Williams China book in every month at least. So I started off with that and I read The Demon King. It is the first book in the Seven Realms series and I believe it has 4 books. Anyway, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I do have a mini non-spoilery review up on my channel already. If you want to check that out, you could do so. If you're looking for like wizards and royalty and just a mess of a princess, love interest, you might be really interested in this. I believe if you really liked the Fallen Kingdom series by Morgan Rhodes, you will enjoy this one. I actually didn't really like that series that much, but I still enjoyed this one a lot more. I think it has the potential, so I will definitely keep going on with it. The only thing that I really didn't like is the spoiled princess vibe that I got and how she like fell for every single male character that was available to her. That felt kind of annoying, but other than that, I really liked it. It was not like perfect, that's all. Next up, I finished reading Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I know this was like such a popular novel last year, and I'm adding to that hype because it was so freaking cute. So I also again have a mini spoiler-free review of it on my channel, but it follows around 2 boys. One is a bisexual main character and another is a gay main character, and they fall in love essentially. It was like more of an enemies to lovers kind of a situation, but it's adorable. Alex is the son of the female president of the USA. He kind of hates the Prince of England. They have to like pretend to be friends, but they end up having a romance instead, and it's just really freaking adorable. Alex is a really funny character. You'll have moments where you're actually laughing out loud. It's very interesting like that. I really enjoyed it and I'm definitely adding on to that hype, but it was a great novel to actually read. Also, just a side note, it is more of a new adult romance, so if you're not okay with having explicit sexual scenes, maybe steer away from it because you'll definitely get those. Next up, we have A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, which is a novel by Sharon Dode and was completed by Patrick Ness. Also have a spoiler-free review on this one. Anyway, this one just was really hard-hitting, and I know it's a super popular book as well. It's very short. Maybe it's like 200 pages or 300 max, but it's such a quick read and it's so impactful in just that few pages itself. Okay, so we have this boy who has these recurring nightmares every single night, and he wakes up at 12:07 a.m. every single night, and then he finds that he's interacting with a yew tree that's living outside his house. Now, this is not a nightmare to him, so because he's like, this is not a big deal. He's not like really bothered with it. What happens later on is that the yew tree wants this kid to speak up and tell the yew tree his truth. So the yew tree is like basically telling him all these stories, and he wants to know the real truth by the end of it. The boy's mother is battling cancer, and that's also another thing that is really incorporated into the story, and it's so hard-hitting. I cried reading that. It was just, it was painful, but it was beautifully written. Next up, I read 3 graphic novels. It might be kind of cheating, I'm not too sure, but I'm still including it obviously. Because it's a book and I read it anyway. So this is actually my first graphic novel that I finished, and it was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I gave this 1 A5 out of 5 stars. The artwork was the most adorable thing I've ever seen. It was so freaking cute. We are following around this prince who likes to dress in dresses. He comes to know about this dressmaker who, she wants to be a designer, but then she isn't there yet. These 2 are just kids right now and she hasn't gotten to that position yet. The prince gives her a job to make dresses for him, and she actually just thinks it's a princess. But then later on she figures out he's the prince and she's totally fine with actually making dresses for him. But they do it in secret, and he dresses in secret obviously, and oh my god, it's like such an adorable story. People come to accept this fact later on. Obviously his parents were devastated at first, but later on they were almost accepting of who he was, and it was really sweet. That artwork again was so adorable, honestly, like I can't, it's so cute. And next up I read the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper by Alice Osman. The first one I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and the second one I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. We have our main character Charlie, who's gay, and we have another jock type of a person who's called Nick. Nick is supposedly straight, or so everybody thinks that way. Even Charlie thinks that, but he ends up like becoming friends with Nick. Charlie ends up becoming friends with Nick, but gradually Charlie starts to have feelings for Nick, knowing that he's straight. The gripe that I had with this mainly was the fact that Nick was very hands-on with Charlie. Like, he would go ahead and touch his hair, caress his face, and his teammates are also like scoffing like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And even then, he's not acknowledging the fact that maybe he's not 100% straight. For me, like, I couldn't understand how it took him that long because of the way that he was acting, especially with Charlie. The artwork was not my favorite. It was good. It was just not like... I mean, I read The Prince and the Dressmaker, and that was like on another level. So this one didn't just like meet my expectations. It was just like, eh. Also, it was in color, okay? I didn't enjoy it that much. Next up, I read Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins. So this one I gave a 3.5 stars out of 5. So we are following around Daisy Winters and her family. So Daisy Winters is an American girl whose sister, Ellie, is engaged to the Prince of Scotland. This obviously poses an issue for Daisy because her life is also in the public eye. Everyone wants to know what she's doing, who she's dating, and everything along those lines. And because of the scandal that happens, Daisy's whisked off to Scotland, where she meets a bunch of Alex's friends. Alex is Ellie's fiance, and she meets a bunch of his friends over there in Scotland. Like, Daisy has a quirky personality. She just speaks out whatever she thinks. She doesn't really think about it too much. There's a good familial relationship in this story. The only thing I wish there was more of was a background on Ellie, just a little more. I thought that would have been really nice to have. I wasn't the biggest fan of the romance in this book. It was fine, like it was done decently well, but in my opinion it could have been built up more. I just felt like it was really rushed towards the end. That's really the only thing. It was fine, it was not the best thing ever, but it was okay, I guess. Next up, I read a new release and the final book in the Truly Devious trilogy, which was The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This one was so good. I don't know how to wrap my head around it. I did obviously give this a 5 out of 5 stars. The Truly Devious trilogy is in 2 different timelines. The first timeline is around the 1930s, where we are in Ellingham Academy, which is for really bright students, right? And it doesn't have a lot of people in there, but it's like in a very isolated, large place. It was founded by Albert Ellingham. Shortly after the Ellingham Academy was opened, his wife and daughter gets kidnapped, and obviously Albert wants to find them. Later on we learn that his wife gets murdered, and we don't know the whereabouts of the daughter. And at the same time, I think there was a student named Daisy. I forget if that was her name, but anyway, she also dies and nobody knows what happened there. She was just a really young kid and she was murdered for apparently no reason. After those murders were done, the school was shut down, and later on Albert himself also was found to be dead on a boat. Now in the present timeline we have Stevie Bell, who is a true crime addict, and she wants to solve the Ellingham murder case. Again, like, it's been all of these years, there's never been a true murder suspect. It's an open case, nobody really has solved it completely, so we don't really know what's going on with it. And Stevie gets a chance to go to Ellingham Academy, and once again, once she gets into Ellingham Academy, there are a few more murders, and she just tries to solve through everything, and it's wonderful like that. In this final book, we have the mysteries all wrapped together in a pretty great way. I really enjoyed it. It is a YA mystery, and just so you guys know, I'm such a wimp when it comes to being scared. I can't read anything mildly thriller or horror. Like, I can't deal with it. I will not sleep for like 2 months. So I'm like such a wimp when it comes to these things. But even so, I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a great book. Next up, I read the second book in the Seven Realms series, which was The Exiled Queen. And I like this a little better than the first one, which was The Demon King, which I read earlier on the month. And I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Now, I have to say the first couple hundred pages were the slowest. Like, we were trying to get to places and they were just traveling for the most part of it, and I was just like, can we get on with it? Like, I'm bored already. It was kind of boring that way, but it was still fine. I didn't really love it, but it wasn't the worst. Once we got to the last couple hundred or like 300 pages, we got to know more stuff about like what would happen, more action was there, and also there was like more magic. Yeah, again, the romance is something I can't stand by. If you have watched my reading vlogs, I have ranted about it quite a bit. Obviously don't want to spoil you guys in this video, so I'm not going to say much. But yeah, the romance is something I cannot stand by yet. I just pick one person, man. Okay, moving on to the final 2 books that I read in this month, and we're at Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. If you didn't know, Christina Lauren is actually 2 different people. I learned that, I think last year from Haley in Bookland. She mentioned that it was 2 people. I never read any of Christina Lauren books, so I didn't know about it. And when I learned about that, I was like, what? That's so cool. Anyway, this one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. So we have Hazel, who's a very eccentric human being, and she's a lot to take in because she has a bold personality. Not a bold person. That sounds like she's a bitch, but she's not. She's really sweet, but it's just, she doesn't have a care in the world, and she knows who she is, and she's okay in accepting that. But the people that she dates, all the guys that she's dating, can't do that because in the beginning when they're dating, they're like, oh, she's quirky, it's cute, whatever. And then they're dating her for some time, and then after a while they realize that she's actually like that, she's not going to change for anything. They ditch her. So she's not great in the dating department, but she's still a very funny character. And then we have Josh, who these 2 characters knew each other when they were in college, and Josh has seen her in her worst, I guess, and she created a lot of spectacles in front of him when they were in college. She threw upon his shoes. She sent him an email when he was a TA or something, which was quite embarrassing. But 10 years later, they actually end up meeting once again, but this time Josh has a girlfriend who is in LA or something, and their relationship is kind of strained. Once he realizes that he has a cheating girlfriend, he obviously breaks up with her, and Josh and Hazel kind of kindles a good friendship. Obviously, it is a romance, so there's no doubt that these characters will end up together, but it's a really cute story, and I really enjoyed it. The final book I read in this month was Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This one I actually enjoyed a lot more than the first book. I gave this a 3.5 stars out of 5. This one follows around Millie Quint, who's from Texas, and she is bisexual. She has a sort of girlfriend, and that girl wants to keep their relationship in secret, and she ends up actually still dating some dude for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, Millie comes to a decision that she's gonna go to the college that she applied to, which is in Scotland. It's not a college, is it? It's like a boarding school in Scotland or something, but it's the first time they're letting in women into that boarding school, and she gets a spot with a full scholarship. Once she gets there, she realizes that she's probably the most poorest there because everyone is insanely rich because they're either like royalty or just plain rich. That's all. They just look rich, right? And then Millie gets there, and she gets this roommate who she gets off on a bad leg with. They kind of hate each other quite a bit, and Millie tells her off in the very first meeting that they have. And later on, she learns that she's actually the Princess of Scotland. So Princess Flora was actually the sister of Alex from the first book. These 2 characters, Millie and Flora, could potentially have a love interest in each other. That's the story. It's really cute, okay? You don't have to read the first book to read this one. If you do read it, you can find the characters in the first book. So Daisy and her love interest comes in this book, and that's pretty much it. You don't really get much else from the first book. You don't necessarily need to read the first one to read this one, because I know a few people didn't like the first one either, kind of like me. So just be aware of that. If you don't want to read the first one, you can skip it and read the second one. It's actually a lot more cuter than the first one, so just saying. You might really like it that way. Alright, you guys, those are all the books I read in the month of January. Yeah, so 11 books, 3 of them were graphic novels, so technically 8 books, but still 11, it's fine. I really enjoyed most of it, quite a bit, and I had a great reading month, but I was focusing so much on romances this month for some reason. I don't know why, but I've been really enjoying reading romances again. If you didn't know, I love reading romances. I used to solely read romances, and then I slowly started getting into fantasy a lot, and that was the only thing I read for a few years. And now we're back at the romance game. I think I'll have a few recommendations for like February when it's like Valentine's Day time. You can read a bunch of romance then without getting judged too much. So I probably will have a lot by then. But that is it for me, you guys. I'll see you guys next time with another one. Bye. This light though makes me blind.